that's the best advice for you to give us, because like Datuk Kamil said, that's true. You know, we filmmakers normally we just go when we pitch, we just have non-disclosure agreement, and sometimes we are very worried about how to protect the ideas that we have and how can it not be translated by and produced by anyone else later. You know.
Yes,
I think Jesse, I have one question, Jesse, regarding the regarding novel, right? So previously we had one court case regarding one movie title, Bosia or something like that, but co-production. That one was brought to the case to the court last time. So can you comment on the issue of the novel that be adopted to be adapted to be the content of film? So the claimant said that the original idea came from his novel and then was proved to the court is not like what he claimed as decided by the court last time.
Okay. Sorry. Actually, okay, so it's important to remember that IP is like a bundle of straws, right? An IP owner has many different straws that they can, that they are given when they enter into different rights with different people, right? Different agreements. You're giving out different rights. So theoretically, the owner of a book, right? The rights vested in that book itself. When you translate it into a film, you're giving the film rights away from the book. So presumably it depends on what exactly transpired in that instance, and you can't, So for example, when a production house, for example, buys over a film, right? Like sometimes, we sometimes get very upset when we see some of our favorite books converted into film, right? Because it doesn't necessarily translate into what we imagine in our minds. But when a film producer takes over that right from that book, the author, they've already given away the rights. Or they've already, to a certain extent, the rights, the producer, the film producer has the right to, the director, film producer and all, have the right to deal with the storyline as they please already. So it's completely separate. It's a different product at the end of the day.
So different product at the end of the day, right? Okay, right.
Sorry, can I just ask a quick question, Jesse? Nowadays the world is like digital, right? So my question would be, like the same thing, like when you send let's say an envelope of your work to yourself by an address, would it apply the same if you were emailing and emailing the same kind of work that you've written? Instead of posting it, you use it digitally. Would that be something you can bring to the court?
You could try and do that. Obviously, the issue is more of a point of substantive evidence, right? Submitting it for evidence and all that. I'll give you an example here. Okay, the reason why we have all these references for time stamping is because if right now Kai and I were both sitting opposite the room across each other, and Datuk Kamil says draw a flower, and Kai and I both draw the exact same flower. Now, who would own the copyright in that flower? The question would be, for example, if I showed the picture of that flower first in time, I would own the copyright in that particular flower, right? And then I can then accuse Kai of saying, hey, you copied that flower because I drew it 5 minutes before you did. So it's important to establish at what point and the time. So for example, if you want to think about using emails and all that, again, emails, depending on how you've attached the document and whether it's been edited, that's also another question. The point here is establishing that timestamp itself. Is the method that you are using, the method that you use must be able to establish that particular timestamp.
So usually in an email, there will be time and date, right? When you send the document across, would that be sufficient?
But for certain documents, like Word documents, you can always edit it later, right? So it depends again on the format you're sending. For example, if it's PDF, is it editable? So you can do that. I mean, it could serve as a timestamp of sorts. But the point here is you want to be able to ensure that your evidence is not disputed later on. To say that technology will allow you amend something you fixed, So likewise for all of these methods, it's not a foolproof method to ensure that you never fall sick or you recover, but it is a method to help protect you, right? All these are different bits that you can add on. So again, coming back to the question of non-disclosure agreement, one of the other problems that I noticed the film industry has is they take generic non-disclosure agreements from Google and all that, and then they present it to the broadcasters or whoever else they're pitching to. The big problem that we've seen is the fact that none of these non-disclosure agreements, majority of the time, well, not say none, majority of the time, they don't even refer to the particular IP that is being presented. And it's important to note that what you are trying to cover and use confidentiality to protect yourself must be clearly stated in the documents. So when you watermark, what are you watermarking your documents with? What are you, trying to protect, right? Your NDA is first off, must be very clear. What is the subject matter of your NDA? It is specific, your project title and, details of that. Copyright notice, you all know how to use the copyright notice, right? It's not just the big C. C with, the name of the copyright owner, the time, the date, and all rights reserved. Watermarking, how are you watermarking the whole thing, Are you also having any digital rights management software? So for example, if you're releasing by digital means, is it password protected? Are there other elements relating to it, non-editable technology, for example? So things like that. It's a matter of mixing and matching to ensure that you have the full spectrum of, protection, not just relying on this. Because like you said, right, it's good to be paranoid, I believe. It's good to be paranoid because it's it's your right, it's your property. And you should take all avenues available to protect yourself.
Jesse, I just want to come back to some basic thing on our rules and regulations in Malaysia, right, regarding copyright. So as we know that we have this international convention, for example, that WIPO International Convention on Copyright, right? So we have also Copyright Act in Malaysia, right? So how is it enough? The rules and regulation and convention that we have already in the world and in Malaysia to protect the creative content users to safeguard their creative ideas. Is it that what we have right now, or do we need to repeal some laws or regulation with regard to copyright, or we need also to have the industry, for example, to set up their own negotiation or contract. That one is to follow the rules and regulation as set by the legal framework that we have already.
Okay, lots of questions there. Let me try and answer each one.
Yeah.
So yes, Malaysia is a signatory to the Berne Convention. So automatically, once you have copyright, a work, original work reduced into material form, it applies across the board to all your Berne Convention countries, which pretty much covers most of the countries around the world, save and except for a few like Kosovo, Iran, and so on and so forth. But by and large, the countries we deal with on a day-to-day basis would be covered by the Berne Convention or the TRIPS. So in that regard, there is that automatic right. If you're talking about the Copyright Act itself, the Act has gone through various rounds of amendments, with the latest, being the giving more rights to the Copyright Tribunal. That was fairly recent as well. Obviously, as with all legislation, there is always an element of being slightly slower because technology obviously advances faster than legislation can keep up with, right? So there's always there's always room for improvement in that regard, right? We can always try and improve our legislation. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, let's put aside legislation. I think the issue with Malaysia today is the fact that the majority of us, majority of the industry does not actually know their rights under intellectual property legislation as a whole. So it's not just a matter of establishing new bodies, new entities, right? We already have the Copyright Tribunal, which serves to, facilitate a lot of potential disputes that may arise. I think what needs to be done is an issue of education to actually allow people to understand what their rights are, and to allow people to actually, be comfortable in exercising their rights. Because again, there is no point having that right. For example, you have that right already, where you already are the copyright owner, but perhaps you're too concerned or too afraid to actually exercise your right. When, a lot of times when we hear about copyright infringement, most times clients end up telling us that they're not comfortable going ahead to enforce their rights. So again, changing legislation here doesn't really fix the problem. It's a matter of education and empowering the individuals.
Well, this is what this program is about. Actually, it's part of the community outreach. But I have a suggestion to Puan Rashida, actually, because, like right now it's COVID time, right? So there is SOP. Everybody have to have masks and social distancing. Now, what happens if we actually get a policy going as part of the awareness creation, kan? Jadi setiap kali sesiapa yang pergi for pitching ke apa, yang the ones who are listening ada notice kat situ yang cakap be respect your ideas, your intellectual property. Please sign, in other words, broadcasting stations, for instance, will now make it automatic for them as part of the SOP to tell everybody, don't worry, here is our NDA, and we, make a commitment. Because currently, if you notice, in the big rush to get the funding, people just go for pitching, and they will complain only 3 months later when their ideas are taken up into another story or whatever. And especially we find this is quite common with those who come for pitching, or at least the ones that I have heard complaints from are those who actually go for pitching. Because of course, pitching, you are giving your ideas to maybe a dozen people, 8, 10 people in the room. And part of it is that so it should be an assurance on the part of the, well, I suppose in our case is the broadcasting stations, to have an SOP to make sure that the creative people are comfortable. Right now, I can tell you, again, this is because of Santai, Mr. Kai, in a very casual way, right? The most complaints are from people who are actually about, what is it? Masa pergi pitching. They are most afraid during that time. And yet, pitching is the foundation. Pitching itulah yang it shows that broadcasters require content, So the demand is coming from there. So, is there a reason why a lot of our content are of lower quality? Because the people keep the higher quality one for, another day. Or maybe because of this lack of the non-confidence. So everybody just gives their 50% saja. Macam takut. I mean, it's just a policy matter, like you say, kan? I'm sure later when we have Q&A, you will find, T also have experience in this. But the other thing that people worry is that you make too much noise, then you'll be blacklisted from the next pitching. And that is the attitude. Kita tahu lah cerita tu kan? Ya? Kita tahu cerita tu. And this is not helping the situation. So, kita ni kena buat macam voluntary. Voluntary sikit on the part of the people who are creating the demand. Macam sekarang ni people nak pergi ke demand tu because out of suddenly dana keluar untuk for whatever, lari bawa lah skrip. Kadang-kadang skrip tu pun orang yang buat skrip tu pun tak dibayar. Okay, I know Jesse also it first the contractual part, right? Contractual.
Yeah.
Let's see another angle here. Some people have said my movie has been screened 10 times on a particular broadcasting station and I never get any royalties. You see, the misconception, the misperception. Okay, music is slightly different, right? You play 10 times, you would have to pay the royalties 10 times or whatever. But for films, some people are saying my movie has been shown 10 times, and not only the producer is saying that, the actor, even the actor, the one who acted in the movie says, how come my movie has been shown 10 times and cannot get any royalties? So this gives you that broad, I think Dr. Megat tahu lah, because Dr. Megat is also from Finas last time. Jadi kita nampak, this is the misperception, yang is creating more confusion rather than clarity. Whereas our role in MIPO is to bring clarity, and as Jesse rightly said, it's all about awareness creation dan sebagainya. So that is my my santai pandangan lah.
Dr. Kamil, so I come from a TV station background also. Last time because I was working for TV3 last time. So we in TV station we had a lot of this pitching, right? Stations, and then there's a lot of complaints from the writers, right? And then whenever they presented the story, and then the TV station made some modification, 30% or 40%, or they said that when this is not your original idea, they already repeal the idea, right? So this is the common thing that being complained by the writers lah. Jadi perkara yang biasa kita dengar. So currently, if you look at the academic, in academic world, right? So we have this software to detect, all right, similarities. For example, in academic, we have this Turnitin software. This software will be able to detect similarities. For example, 30%, 20%. So this also, I believe, can be approved if there is any kebetulan ataupun improvement has been done to your original idea. I think doing some modification to the story is quite common, but as long as that the original idea can be proven belongs to someone, I think it still can the original idea the first idea creator will be able to prove that it is come from him or from her. I'm not sure. Maybe JC can give some ideas on this lah. The use of certain software, for example, to show that percentage of certain the usage of certain software, for example, to detect it, or besides time we spend we take the date or something like a proof of sending proposal or pitching. Is it something that we can prove as part of our way to prove that it belongs to us, it belongs to us?
So again, coming back to, sorry, I'm just going to jump in and answer both questions, right? Both. I think, Dr. Kamil, with regard to your first one, you're talking about a safe space for folks to present. Now, honestly, before, one thing that most writers can do, if they really have a library of their work and they feel that they need a safe space, they can do a voluntary registration with MyIPO, because that is really proof that they have actually come up with that particular script, synopsis, or storyline, right? And so there is an avenue there, so to speak, right? Coming back to your issue of royalties due to the actor and to the producer. Again, typically when you deal with broadcasting stations, most times they acquire they acquire a full automatic copyright assignment. So when we talk about copyright assignment, it's a full-on sale and purchase. You no longer own rights to that particular work, right? So we can address that in the next part. So when you have already sold your house, for example, right? Imagine your IP is like a house. When you already have sold your house, you can't exactly go back and claim rental from the new owner who's renting it out. You can't say you have, you should have a share in that rental being charged. So that's one point to note, right? Unlike music, which there is already an existing royalty, understood cultural aspect of it, right? So you have music royalties. Even then, that's a separate can of worms that we shall, address separately. But ultimately, once you've sold your rights, that's it. So for the actor, right? For the actor, you've already actually signed off on your contract to say that you have accepted your, whatever fee you have received for that particular film. That in itself is your full and final consideration for your efforts. Likewise for the film producer who has sold that work. So it's not a matter of saying, it's been, screened 10 times. I should get royalties for that 10 times. And then coming back to, so I hope that addresses that. And then coming back to Dr. Magat's question, I think it's a matter of awareness at the end of the day, right? Folks all want certain rights. I think it's just a matter of understanding how we can address it appropriately.
So sorry guys, going back to what Jessie says about Dato' Kamil saying about royalties, and also Jessie was saying that copyright is actually like a bundle of straws. Maybe T can help us clarify on, especially on the pitching process, like us filmmakers kan bila kita pitch. Normally we pitch, there are a few ways to pitch. Some people just pitch a concept, some people just pitch an idea, some people pitch a very detailed synopsis. So normally when you go to pitching session actually and propose your idea, kan, we have students here maybe in the future they're going to go and pitch it and pitch to broadcasters. Kan. So what do you pitch actually? It's about, I think this question, there's something more to these questions about when you pitch, and then if copyright is like a bundle of straw. So when you give that right, so normally as filmmakers like us, when we pitch like macam a synopsis and a concept, and then you sign a commissioning agreement after that, and then you already release all the rights before that. Yeah. But then only you create the characters and other things. So maybe T can explain the whole process first, and then maybe Jessie can advise us on how we can go ahead in the future before signing that commissioning agreement and not releasing everything in the universe to the broadcaster.
Again, I would like to I would like to remind the panels that the practice in Malaysia is a little bit different from the international, so you release it for something. But in Malaysia, you do not have that option. You can only give, for example, if TV stations say, I buy this, means I buy the full right. You don't have the option to negotiate with the TV station. Which technically, in my view, is a form of
oppression.
Oppression. Yes. I shouldn't say that. Sorry, TV station. No, please do not take me off from work. But it is what is the main issue to that is not about the oppression part, but more to the livelihood of the artist. You see, when you don't pay the right copyrights and the royalty to the artist, what happens is the artist has to struggle their whole life. So that's why the reason why the copyright is written in the first place is to protect all these artists. For example, if J.K. Rowling made a Harry Potter and then gave all her rights to the producers or to the TV station, what will happen to her? She will not make any money, and that is what is happening in our society. My teachers who's been, you know, writing hundreds of dramas are still struggling, you know,
To
so
survive.
to survive. So these are the things that I think MyPo should try to maybe negotiate with the TV station. Let's have a contract, or please don't take the whole right of the artist. You know, maybe they have only 1 or 2 chance to pitch, because as we know, Kai, when we talk about pitching, we talk about idea, creating an idea is actually not so easy as everybody say. You might have an idea of a guy and a girl, you know, falling in love, like Jessie said, dying tragically, but how do you present the story? How do you structure the story? How do you make people want to watch the story? That all takes a lot of work and psychological studies, you know. It's not like just like that. and those hard work should be paid off, right? And for students out there, if they want to know about pitching is not a short process. If you want to become a writer, you must be willing to be patient, and you have to be willing to put long hours of work to make your idea or your story materialize. So an idea can come from, usually I discuss with a producer or director. You have an idea, and then you transform that to, like what Jessie said, is a written material, which you could submit to MyPo. Sometimes I do get a bit paranoid. I just, what I do is I email the material to myself so that I have a date and time. That's what I do. And I also, if it's very crucial, I register a song with my phone, not that my song became a hit or anything like that. But, you know, just so that I know that I try to protect myself in a minimum way. But yeah, Kai, usually, even if pitching, you come up with the idea, then you pitch to the director or the producer, you don't sign anything, because it's more like a trust of faith. I think this is also what happens to most of the writers. We get cheated because we trust our friends or something. But yeah, that happens. So it's a bit difficult for you to write first and then present, right? So even in TV station, you have to bring a proposal. I think actually what I understand from WIPO, when you write and you do the proposal, technically you already own the copyright to that material. Even if you don't register, actually you have the copyright to that material, right? But the issue is, of course, proving later that that's your story and all that, unless you have a very unique story lah. So you present to the TV station is different from you present to the filmmakers. The process is a bit long, so I don't want to get into that. Kai, I don't think we have enough time for the detailing. But I'm sure the students out there, if you have any questions, you can just ask us anytime.
Yeah, probably. Jessica.
Kai, I think that the introduction, the advance or the establishment of this tribunal is some way, just like IDOS tribunal, the copyright tribunal is something like to help you have the housing tribunal, right? So this copyright tribunal is some sort of like a cheaper way for individual. If you want to bring into a civil court, for example, it's going to cost you a lot of money, right? So this tribunal will allow the normal people, individual that don't have much money, to submit their claim or to report any, as JC said just now, the proof that we have, for example, the proof of sending, the proof of email, can be considered as something that to prove the ownership of our content. So in tribunal, Dato' Kamil, I just want to be sure that the tribunal will be using what WIPO is in order to make judgment on someone right to his content, to his ideas. ke Datuk Kamil? Puan Rashidah? Yeah. So because there is no contract, right? There is no contract. So are we using the Copyright Act, or are we using partly the WIPO convention to make this justification or to make the judgment?
Okay, maybe I can assist Datuk Kamil here. Okay, the beauty about the Copyright Tribunal is that for any equitable remuneration issues, you can, even if in the absence of contract, you can still bring it to the tribunal for the issues on this equitable remuneration. If the artist is not happy whatsoever with the amount that they have received. So that's why we would really like to see that the artists come forward and try and use the tribunal as a platform, because this is where if they're not happy, they don't, in the absence of contract, or even if they want to vary their contracts, they can try to use the tribunal, because of course you have the court, but tribunal, like what Dr. Bhagat said, as in all the other tribunals, it will of course try to give a fast, speedy and efficient service. So this is when we want to let the artists know that you don't have to suffer on your own, but because there is an avenue for you to come forward to the tribunal. And we have here Datuk Kamil also is one of the member of the tribunal. Maybe Datuk Kamil have something to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Puan. The one thing that we would like to add is that we want the tribunal to be seen as, like you mentioned, as the, how shall we say, the safe house. The safe house. And in fact, I would even go so far to say that our role in getting the real stories are also underway at this moment, because people are getting in touch with us secara sulit lah, secara sulit. Dan secara sulit ni pun meragukan sebab it means banyak yang takut. Now artists are not supposed to be takut. I mean, if you are an artist, actor, writer, I mean, ramai sangat yang takut. Jadi ini yang I think at our meetings also we have highlighted kan. Betul, kita nak kena break down the barrier. So the tribunal will break down the barrier. Mungkin kita turun padang and so on, and then try and interact dengan yang baru-baru nak start ni. Sebab kadang-kadang ni we also hear from what I call the regular complainer. Orang tu dah complain dekat 20 tahun. 20 years he has been complaining about the same thing. And then most of the time we're not even sure whether it is emotional or whether it is factual. But most of the time, like Jesse has explained right just now, your movie has been, sort of contracted out, and whether the broadcasting station want to show it 100 times, that's their business, right? But our purpose, the tribunal, is actually the value add. I think Puan Rashidah knows this very well. The value add in the tribunal is that kita not just nak jadi listen saja, but we want to impact the policy. The policy lah. I mean, legislation is the story. Because as what was said just now, we have the legislation. It's all there. Tapi why are our artists so takut again? And this is where I think broadcasting station ni must be, orang ni pun kita datang sekolah dengan kita.
Sorry, Puan Rashidah. Maybe you guys can share how for us to contact this copyright tribunal. Maybe future filmmakers and existing filmmakers can also contact, because like me, I've been in the industry for more than 10 years, tapi I baru dengar copyright tribunal committee like last year.
You just heard about the tribunal?
I just heard about the tribunal last year. So maybe it's a good I think the tribunal can be a good body to educate us all before we go and pitch our ideas to the world. So at least we are better prepared and know what rights that we can have and what rights that we can know and what to protect first, especially in the so-called non-disclosure agreements that we're going to write. Right?
But here's my concern though, dear panel, is that you cannot go against the TV station. You know, like, how can you, I mean, we are not in authority to discuss with the TV station because we could lose our work, people could hate us, you know. But I think maybe people like MyPo or the tribunal, you know, Kai, diorang maybe, sorry, cakap bahasa Melayu, maybe they can go and negotiate and say, you know, look what, you're making so much money from advertising every time you're like playing all this work. Why don't you pay the royalty to the artist that's involved if you're playing so many times of the work so that they can survive and do more work? Because if not, they're going to just disappear and die of you know, pain from life because you cannot earn the money because, you get what I mean? So those are the things that I think the tribunal or MyPo can look into, because there's no point fighting and then, because we writers, we don't want to go to court, you know, we don't want to waste our energy, we can help it unless the movie goes 100 million or something, that probably is worthwhile, right? But we don't want to fight with the TV station. We don't want to fight with the film producers. What we want is that because I think most of my friends also, when I say, hey, I register my song in MyPo, and then they laugh because it's like, so what? You know, even if there is a law, are you really protected? This is the issue that is happening in our industry. And I'm new. I don't have the rights to talk much, I think. But I feel very sad seeing my you know, my teachers, you know, people who've been there and they've done so much work and they're not being what's the word in WIPO here? Being
remunerated?
Yes, remunerated or rewarded according to the work that they have put in and give to the society. Right?
I think as we know also, right, there's also the trying to balance between legal requirements and also trying to make a living. So maybe most of the authors are freelancers, they create ideas and maybe any of the panelists can advise all these authors and producers. Even normally when you pitch your first idea, you might not be in a good financial situation to really acquire your rights, right? So, but sometimes I personally have experience in the last few years where one or two of my drama series being a hit in the local broadcasters, and then we got our second season and second season, and then suddenly the broadcasters decide not to continue the third season because it's becoming expensive, right? Which is fair because everyone needs to be rewarded when you go into the first, second, third season, right? Because you have to increase the salary, every cost goes, you need to reward the actors, the writers and everyone because of the success. But then when they stop producing, then suddenly fans, and you know there's market for the content, but then your rights is not there. You don't own the rights anymore. So is there any dealings that we can do in the beginning so that if the producers or writers or authors are in a better financial situation in the future to get back the rights if the broadcasters decide not to continue with because especially sometimes you want to do spin-off with the characters when you sell all right.
And then we visited Animation Guild in the US last time to see how they work over there. So Ernest, I really understand your concern, and I'm glad that you voiced out your concern just now. So based on what was done in other countries, right? For example, in the US, over there the guild or association over there functions very well, and then they become the reference for the any problem arising between the producers and also the station and the studios over there. So the problem here, like for example, TRNet, Sky, you are working alone. And then we depend normally with the agreement given by the station, right? So we don't have any reference. So one thing that we can do is for us to association in Malaysia also, we have the problem. They also don't really understand. So they have a limited knowledge on this issue, copyright issue. For example, when I talk to the Film Producers Association, professional film workers or Film Directors Association, where we are talking about the copyright issues, none of them are interested to talk about this issue. They are talking about how much money they can get, that's all. But they don't come back to the basic issues, that is the copyright issue. Whenever they have already given their right to the producers or to TV stations, as JC said, that's it. So you don't have any other right, unless what has been written on the contract, right? So the understanding of the contract is very important for our industry. So on the part of this government body, for example, FINAS, Datuk Kamil, so maybe there is a long journey for us, and then FINAS to function as a corporation to develop this industry. So that is the role of the agency to guide the filmmakers, the industry players, or for example, my IPO also maybe can my IPO is only it's not function to set up the contract between the players and the TV station. They only provide the policy, right? So it comes back to the issue of contract, right? Come back to the issue of contract, and then we hope that the legislation in Malaysia would be able to give some basics. Basic rules and regulations that should be respected by both party, content creator and also the studios or the producer. So we hope that there will be some minimum level of remuneration. For example, minimum level. For example, we have the author right. For example, whenever you submit your script to TV station, the first season, your name as the original ideas will appear in the credit, right? So the second season, whenever the TV station bought your whole right, so in the second season, your name will be no longer there because you don't have any right. But actually, we still have the right as an author right. So that is another way. Right. So there's another thing that happened. Yeah.
Dr. Magat, that's a great point. I think it's the legislation actually does cover all those points actually. The Copyright Act actually provides for the right of authorship, and as well as the fact that all it provides for contracts as well for the ownership in the copyright to be actually flipped. If so amended by a contractual basis. So actually, you're absolutely correct, Dr. Magat, when you talk about contracts being the key here. The fact of the matter is, from the beginning, before you even sign anything with TV stations, the problem with the industry is there is this culture of fear. Everyone is so afraid of being blacklisted, of being seen as a difficult or a troublemaker, that no one actually questions the stations or the commissioners, so on and so forth. But you would be surprised. T, to answer your question, we have represented a number of Malaysian local entities, and we have actually helped them amend agreements with the broadcasters. It is possible. The fact of the matter is most people are actually too afraid to ask for it. And, sometimes the parties you're dealing with at the broadcasting stations don't actually want to reach out to legal because it will delay the process. But it is entirely possible. What we usually do recommend is that when you start off talking to the broadcasters, you actually negotiate for a carve-out of the rights. So coming back to Kai, in your case, season 3, there should have been a provision to ask for first right of refusal, or the right that in the event the broadcasters are not interested to carry on season 3, 4, 5 or spin-offs, you are in first position to actually request for the rights to buy it over. Because let's be fair here, people. It's a matter of dollars and cents, right? If the TV station commissions the work, the Copyright Act is very clear. Commissioner owns all rights unless the agreement provides to the contrary. So in the case of Malaysian entities, and we have actually helped them amend agreements with the broadcasters, we must be brave enough to demand for it. So ultimately, yes, let's be clear. Don't let the TV stations take all rights. Ask for certain rights to be retained. For example, rights to broadcast to other territories, rights to engage in other activities. For example, it is a bundle of straws. If you are selling to a terrestrial TV station, let them only have the terrestrial TV rights. If you're selling to cable, they keep only cable rights. You must be able to look and negotiate, because the problem with the industry is everyone is too afraid. They look at lawyers and they go, oh, lawyers are expensive. We're not very comfortable talking to a lawyer. But bear in mind, we are here to help you guys, right? We are here not to, not to deprive you or further of your livelihood. But if you don't actually step up, be brave, negotiate, and take that opportunity, right, to demand back for certain rights, because it's entirely possible, then you are in a position to actually further enhance your livelihood and not worry about, because T, I hear you. I completely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
The method. Sorry?
Yeah, sorry, please go ahead.
Yeah. So the fact of the matter is, it is entirely possible. You just need to be able to actually show that you're willing to negotiate. It's not about being difficult or being a troublemaker, because ultimately the TV stations also know, right? Unless they have commissioned everything and they have paid you a sum of money, it was very clear-cut commissioning arrangement. But if you have pitched to them, and it's intended to be a collaboration of sorts, or something along those lines, it really depends ultimately, because copyright needs to be read together with your contracts. So you need to be able to carve things out at the onset and not after you've signed on the dotted line. Because far too often we've seen a lot of clients who come to us with the contract and then they tell us, fix this for me. I can't fix it after you've signed it. Imagine, right? You have built this house. You bought that land, you built the house. Now, you know that you spent X amount of money to buy that land and build that house. It's your blood, sweat, and tears. If you decide to sell the house to the first person that comes along to buy it for 10 ringgit, even though you spend 100 ringgit on the house, that's a mess of a commercial principle. You can't change your mind after you've signed the SMP, right? After you've signed the SMP, the process has started. You don't turn around and say, oh, I want to charge you 1,000 ringgit because I've changed my mind.
Yeah.
So you need to, before you sign the SMP, and you need to think about, changing things up a bit, right? Don't sell the whole house. Rent it out. Rent out rooms.
I agree, Jessie, but I don't think that's the issue. Like, for example, like me, I'm a new person in the industry, right? And I know my rights, but I cannot exercise my rights. The truth is, I have a few times when I don't follow the TNC of course, the purchaser, I will lose the job. So my probably suggestion to my poll is that, you guys are policymakers. Policymakers, what do policymakers do? I'll give a simple example. Let's say last time the wages for the workers are at 7 ringgit an hour. Policymakers can make it to, say, 13 ringgit per hour. Policymakers also can tell the broadcasters, look what you shouldn't put in your TNC for the filmmakers when they to give all the rights to you, because for example, I don't want to say which broadcasting, but most of they will take all the rights and they will not allow the filmmaker forget about negotiating, because only certain people in the industry are allowed to negotiate. We know this for a fact. Not people, normal people, citizen like me. I want to exercise my rights, but I can't really, because of it's different from if the policymakers say, look, you can only ask right from the filmmakers for 3 years or 5 years. That's your duration. Because other than that, it becomes an oppression to the people. They can do that. Policymakers can do that. But we in the industry, for us to materialize that, we have to go to a lot of length and work and energy to make it happen when it can easily. So you see in America or in UK, they have policymakers that look into the livelihood of their artists and look back at what they can fix to eliminate all this unnecessary work. Like, why do we have to give all our right to the TV station? Because we don't have a choice. If we have a choice, if let's say the policymaker makes it a choice for us, then we can negotiate. I know we can, but I'm trying to say sometimes the practicality of things are not applicable to certain people. It's not about that I'm being afraid. Sometimes I do, as you know, I speak what I think.
Yeah. Tiana, I'm with you actually, Tiana. I can feel, and I'm part of the writers also as well. So I can feel that you raise a very good question, a very good clamor to the policymaker, for example, like FINA and maybe MyIPO. The government actually has to do something, right? So at the agency, for example, they have to show some example. For example, TV station like RTM as well, the government TV station, Ministry of Communication and Multimedia, for example, TV station in Malaysia, they will always replicate the way how RTM is doing. For example, RTM also is not being fair. I told the people when I was invited to become the panel for RTM last time for the strategic planning of RTM, I told RTM they should not take the whole right of the RTM content, because the current practice of RTM, they will buy all right through the tender process, right? The tender process meaning that the TV station, RTM will buy 100% the right based on the price given by the RTM, so the people will submit their pitching to the RTM through the tender process. So the script writers, normally they don't have the right at all. They are given 500 ringgit for one idea, and then to the producer pitch to RTM, and then they are given the job to the producer, and then that's it. They will get the payment. For example, for one episode they get 25,000, and then for the second season they will have to pitch again, and then there is they don't keep the right at all, so the right belongs to the RTM. I think this is not healthy. So I think we need on the part of the government body, for example, Ministry of Communication and Multimedia as well. We need to repeal some of the system that we are doing right now, where the TV station can only have the screening right. All right. So maybe. JC, I agree that the contract that we can do so many kind of contract, but at the policy level, we need to hear the voice of the people like the example like the Ministry of Communication and Multimedia, MyIPO, and Finance also, to develop some policy. What minimum? What maximum, for example, for the TV station to hold? What should be the minimum right, not only for the TV station or for finance, for example, the negotiation body, for example, guild or association, for example, we need to develop a strong association that can help us in order to draw some negotiation and agreement. For example, in the US, right, as I told you, Guild, Screenwriter Guild, they have every year to draw a minimum contract, negotiation contract with the studios. So all the writers, they will refer to their association. What would be the best contract for them to sign whenever they deal with the TV station? So if we depend on the TV station to give us the contract, definitely the contract will be biased to them. So we hope that the government, finance or MyIPO or some other agency, we should have some sort like ways how to draw a minimum or basic requirement or basic maximum or minimum level of remuneration to the people involved in industry. And we pity to the people like T. Arnaz, some of others writers. They don't. We can see that this is very a problem that we are facing right now in our industry, where people when we are depending only on the contract signed between the station and between the producer and also the writer, so that this will become a problem for us to face. So I think Dr. Kamil or Puan Rashidah maybe can say something on this thing, because we are part of this the policymakers to help the industry.
That's very good, Dr. Megat. I mean, my view, and has always been, I've always maintained that view for a long time already. The fact of the matter is this industry, our creative industry, has not been taken seriously yet by the very people that we want to take this industry seriously, if you know what I mean. It has, don't kid ourselves. This industry is actually a low priority item, in my view. And that's why at our tribunal level, we are trying to up the ante a bit. We are trying to escalate, nak bawa tu naik ke tahap as a property. Because you see, in all our interaction dengan mainly the policy makers policymakers other than us in the Kementerian, this is a hiburan. Hiburan is not important in this country at this moment in time. Not as important lah. I'm not saying not important. Not as important. That's why kita have problem despite APTA dah ada, policy dah ada, after what MyIPO is trying to do, benda ni tak boleh diangkat on the same par as let's say some other industry. So one of the first things we are trying to do, and ni nanti besok we can suggest, is this. You know this thing called the implied factor. I think Jesse can add on later. The implied, meaning tak payah lagi dah a contract tu kena ada kona ke apa, it is implied. Kalau if I sign with the broadcaster, example lah, dia tak boleh ambil all the rights except apa yang dah
minimum.
Yang dah disetujui, minimum. Because you are right, Dr. Megat. Sekarang ni, they must understand a digital asset, dia punya exploitation capability tu, macam what you said just now, is everywhere. Your character can be a merchandising and licensing punya part. And then, who knows, your character, a sub-character, maybe ada watak, ada tu utama, but maybe a sub-character can be a spin-off. This is what is preventing Malaysian from fully optimizing dia punya intellectual property punya capabilities. Because you are right, in the US, benda ni is a given. It's a given. It's a bit like the law says you can't have a contract where they end line there, they say errors and ENO commission or whatever, but that line says I can murder you. You can't put something like I want to kill you in a contract. So maybe this is the direction. Very good ideas just now, And I think we have touched on many good ideas. And I think this is where the next direction should be. Kita imply, we all know the typical artist. Okay, this is just my personal view, so don't shoot me. I'm only the piano player, yeah. Most artists actually, most creative people, malas nak tahu pasal legal part, pasal financial part, pasal apa-apa part. That's why they are easily exploited. Jadi memang from the very beginning, MIPO and our tribunal memang dah accept that this is the case. Sebab diorang ni kreatif. I mean, why are the creative people so easily exploited? Sebab they are creative. Kita punya kerja kan, no. Kita punya kerja is what? Duduk bawah pokok tepi laut, suddenly one outline, one log line for a movie comes out. You go, a slow drive, traffic jam, suddenly music, 4 bars of a new song comes out. That is creativity. Tapi here, it's hiburan, entertainment. And then it's our fault also sometimes, because the news associated with our industry itu apa? Scandal. Inilah, itulah, semua yang nothing to do with the economic side. And this is where at MIPO, I finally have that platform where nak bawa this industry as an economic growth area, like many other countries. Why? Because it's not just about film, kan? Like you said.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, maybe this is too santai already, so I will leave it to our other colleagues if they can have anything to add on. But in conclusion, I mean, for this particular topic, yes, the artists must be protected, not just by them knowing kita kena buat policy or legislation that is implied. Broadcasters cannot take everything, for instance, but we are not forcing. Part of our plans under MIPO, under our tribunal, is to meet the broadcasters pula. I mean, it's not just outreach to the artists. Kita dah outreach to the people who are creating the demand for the artists punya outputs. Yang sekarang ni, so happen that artists punya output yang not properly taken care of. Thank you.
Datuk Kamil, Puan Rashida and the rest of the panel, I think that what available, the guideline given by WIPO, for example, under the Bern Convention, maybe we can also apply some of the Beijing Convention. This convention can be a good guideline for us. The minimal level of ownership that the broadcaster can have. So we can take that the Bern Convention and Beijing Convention, if the Beijing Convention will be accepted by Malaysia, will be accepted by Malaysia. So maybe this is can be a minimum level. So maybe there are some guidelines also from other countries also maybe that would be suitable for us. Because when we look at the industry right now, because of the digital disruption right now, so there are a lot of opportunity for us to publish our content, right? For example, YouTube also can have our channel for us to screen our content. So not only in our local TV station. So there are actually the cycle of economy for this industry is big. We cannot just depend on the local consumption. So the international consumption, for example, Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon, as well as this YouTube, can also part of the money of the economic cycle for the industry player to gain from to get some benefit of their involvement. So that's why we need some sort like minimum requirement or minimum basic level of standard rules and regulations with regard to the copyright. So we hopefully that we, the Kamil, my IPO and some other agencies also can help us, can help the industry to draw some basic level of rules and regulation policy with regard to this matter.
Yeah, I guess from as a filmmaker point of view, I think you guys make some interesting points. And of course, betul, I think the law is there, tapi it's easier said than done in practice. And also, I think filmmakers pun have to start be more knowledgeable on copyright law, because I think they need to be well equipped lah. Sebab there's a lot of rights that yang came out from one idea kan, and sometimes kita pergi like we don't know, we just go and pitch, and then kita hantar suddenly, then they commission you the job, and then you sign the contract, then baru you create the whole world, and then you realize that you're losing your characters, you're losing every single thing, and like Datuk Kamil cakap, memang our IPs kat Malaysia, we didn't really reap one IP tu betul-betul perah habis-habis, you know.
We have to hire Jesse. We have to hire Jesse, guys. Have to hire Jesse.
I think that's the purpose of our discussion today. We know we have a copyright tribunal committee, and then Jesse is explaining to us about having that buying out clause. Tapi yalah, we still there are still, especially freelancers, and they're afraid nanti jadi difficult dalam negotiation, and then you don't get any jobs lah kan, tak approve lah idea, you know. Nak balance the livelihood dengan apa legal punya requirements tu is not easy, but the minimal requirement tu, I think I like the idea. It will help everyone. At least everyone will get a piece of the cake in fairness, and the IP can be really expand. You know, you can even create spin-off, because idea bukan senang kan to create. So once you create the world, you can at least always use it. And now you have YouTube, you can always do spin-offs there, you know, with low budget punya cost, and at least producers can keep on generating income, and authors can keep on generating income lah. But I just want to know from the panelists, kalau you guys ada any advice to young filmmakers ataupun even the current filmmakers kan, because sometimes they know we have lawyers to advise, but sometimes companies and freelancers, they think they don't have the financial means to engage a lawyer, or to meet IPO pun maybe diorang takut nanti ingat, you know, they just being difficult. So if you guys have any advice how for producers and authors lepas ni, before pitching, before going to give their ideas, what should they equip themselves?
I think it's important for everyone to know that they are, like T said, you must know your rights. And even if you know your rights, you must be, for me, I think, just be brave enough to actually protect yourself, because it's not unusual now to go and say, you know, I want an NDA. Even if they don't want to sign an NDA, there's nothing wrong with you stamping everything with private and confidential. There's nothing wrong with you actually taking the effort to file a stat deck to protect yourself, right? And honestly, if we talk about providing legal to the industry, we've done that on various occasions on a pro bono basis to many, many clients. And for some clients who actually say, hey, I don't have the budget to pay you now, would you be willing to take back end? Meaning that when my film or my production does well, we'll cut you a share of the net revenue. Sure, we are happy to work things out. And honestly, I think there are a lot of professionals out there, not just for lawyers, but, you know, for your finance folks and all that as well, who might be willing to look at arrangements on that basis, right? So you don't have to think of, oh, I don't have the budget. Oh, it's the end of the world. I can't protect myself because I'm just going to cowboy my way out of it. That to me is not helpful as well, because there's no harm in trying to do more research to educate yourself. I mean, education is always good, right? And arming yourself with that knowledge is important. So for, you know, we're always here. Shin Associates is always here to help. Oh, feel free to connect with us, and we can lend a hand when necessary.
Rashida, you're mute.
The moderator, may I say something? I know I'm not in the panel, but just further to what Jesse said, yes, contract is, I would say, fundamental, very important for all the artists, everyone involved in this movie making. It's very delicate. That's why you need to know your rights, and contract will have to be stipulate all those details which could protect you later on. But what T just said just now was very interesting. They said that yes, although you are supposed to negotiate, but in practice you feel that you're not in the what do you call it, bargaining power to negotiate. So you see, in the copyright ecosystem, there is also the collecting management organization, which at the moment in Malaysia, what is established is just the music CMOs, the abbreviation CMOs. But if you, like Dr. Megat said just now, in all the other countries, in the US, they have a very established collective management organizations or the Actors Guild. So these are all some forms of associations that, would be your voice, because it would not be easy for just say you as a person to go and negotiate with the big boys, you see, with the TV station and so on. And so that the negotiating, the bargaining position, of course, would not be, it will be one-sided. But if you come as a big voice, so that's why in the ecosystem, the collective management organization works very much important to safeguard also those members in it, so that you can also use the CMO to come up with what is the ceiling, or what is the minimum, and so on. So a CMO, a good functioning CMO, would actually work to help assist its members in negotiating and so on. And of course, at the end of the day, and then they also need to get the contracts. What are the contracts that best could benefit its members? So part of my post job is also to regulate the CMO. So all we need to see is that the artist doesn't walk alone. It's just like a lamb. If you walk alone, so the wolf will come to go after that single lamb. But if the lamb comes as a group, isn't it? So even the wolf gets scared.
This one is like you are a supporter of Liverpool.
I don't watch football. I'm sorry, but my husband does.
You never walk alone. I think that's a good.
Never walk alone. So that's the only thing I would say to all the artists: never walk alone. So you don't know what's out there. People just you see, because Malaysians are very talented, I would say. We're not less talented than Korean or any other artist in the US. But what makes it work is because of the system that they have, and say these bodies that governs them, that system, so that you don't walk alone. So it will leave all the wolves get scared. Okay, just metaphorically speaking. Okay, Mr. Moderator, thank you.
Thank you for Rashida. That is a guarantee from our policy maker lah. So at least the policy makers will be helping us lah, the industry, individual, pity lah, because I don't only have these friends, Tianet, Kai, I have also my student, right? Every semester we have 200-300 students involved, and then just imagine one university produce the student, how many people depending on this industry to live, right? So that's why the policy that we are trying to do is something that will develop this industry further. So the industry, the creative industry, because of this, the digital development, right? So we have a lot of opportunity for us to become the something that contribute to the economy of the country. So we hope that with this with the understanding of this copyright issue, not only on we always blame the people don't understand the copyright issue, and actually this copyright issue is not being understood also by the people at the top level, at the ministry level. That is what I can say lah, because we can see that the issue of copyright also, when you're talking at the level of the ministry, also some people also still don't understand, because we can see that the government TV station also not really don't really practice this the basic understanding of copyright lah. So the basic, the people at the lowest level, for example, the workers, the script writer, but as to the industry as a whole, because that the industry proper diet, for example, proper food, they will not be able to produce good ideas. See, that is the analogy that I can give. Alright, Dr. Kamil.
Okay.
I think all that needs to be said has been said. So all that we're saying is that I think on our part as a tribunal member and also Puan Rashida, I think we are happy that what we are planning is in the right direction. Yeah, what? Is in the right direction. Because it is based more centric, not so much on the people yang demand the content, but on those yang supply the content. So we are going back to the you will never be alone lah. I mean, it's back to Liverpool. I mean, don't talk to me about MU. So
one more thing.
So makna, I think yang perangkaan kita ni, kita punya perancangan under the tribunal, I think is in the right direction for this. Because here we're talking about from script to screen. We identify the thing, and then later we are going to break this out to even another level, which is also once when it's on the screen, what happens next? Because licensing and merchandising is the other big issue here. The ideas that comes from spin-offs, when the character goes into comics. That's why I have never advocated the buying all rights, because you must allow the creator to later spin off into comics, into even a game. Because later when you do a game, you need characters and the storyline also. So this is where it is blocking, I believe. So inshallah, we will get to we'll be pressing the right buttons.
Good to know that all the policymakers are going that direction, and because for us filmmakers, it's really helpful because it's sad sometimes to listen to stories yang filmmakers, practitioners yang dah bertahun tapi they don't even own a single rights at all, and berpuluh tahun creating contents, but then they don't own a single right. So but now hopefully, I guess like Dato' Kamil said, betul lah, because we need to spin off, because when you sell your rights, the whole rights to the universe, of the universe to the broadcasters, you don't even have they're not in the game of producing comics or merchandising and everything. They're just showcasing it on their stations, right? But for producers, they might be able or be interested to produce and spin it off to merchandise like comics, games, and nowadays games, and even YouTube contents right now. So but now with the rights all with the stations, it's very difficult to do those things.
So my last advice to the students out there, filmmakers, is never give up. Your idea, maybe maybe today you don't have the rights for all your ideas, but maybe tomorrow you can have the rights for all your ideas. I think for a start you can get some information from MyPo. Go to their website, www.mypo.gov.my. And then you can also, if you are, coming up with a contract, you should, like Jessie said, maybe have an advisor, like a lawyer, before you speak to a broadcaster, or once you have discussed with the producer, you might want to have at least a legal advisor on how do you go about before you sign on the dotted line. So I think that's what we also learned today, which is very important. And I think, of course, my teacher always say right, right? So I think sometimes we don't have time to think because we want to be focused on our work. So if the policy makers can make our life a little bit easier, we would really appreciate it. I mean, we love Malaysia, we love the government more. So I'm not trying to bother anybody, but it comes from my heart. I used to live in New York for very long and actually came back because, there's nothing to contribute overseas. You have to contribute in your own country. And I believe if we come together, the problem is we have associations, and I believe they have been fighting for very long for their rights. But what I heard that it didn't go anywhere. So maybe what we can do is look in the history, look in the industry like the Koreans did. You know what the Korean did is before they become very big, they did a policy strategic placement in the entertainment, which is to advertise who they were, their culture, the people, everything, their content, their language. And before they did that, they study first what was the problem of the industry. How can we address the issues? How can we make the artists focus more on their artwork? Because artwork needs a lot of energy, a lot of focus, and a lot of, it's not a 9-to-5 job, right? So what I would recommend to the government and the policymakers is please look into not only the systems all around the world to devise our own good system, but also look on the ground and see truly what are the challenges that the artists are facing. Like, of course, Kai say, producer, director, we know what are the struggles, the artists, what are the struggles, you know. Like, for example, if actors veteran actors get paid royalty for their work at TV stations, they won't have to ask help from the government when they're older, because those, even if let's say 1% or 0.0, you know, like say 50 ringgit you pay, 50 times 30 times main dekat TV pun dah berapa ringgit kan, that could help them. So that's my point. So look into what is it actually the issue, what is making the livelihood difficult, what is it not making our industry grow. So thank you for having me. I know I talk too much sometimes but I hope I did help somewhere or another to bring the awareness and also inspire students out there and filmmakers to not give up. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Tiana. Your concern is very much appreciated. Yeah. You. So for the student as well, for Rashida, so for the university, so that is important also. So for the university, for example, to make compulsory course for the broadcasting communication student to have this course actually. Understanding and the copyright also should be one of the costs to be offered for the communication students. So I can feel that in UPM also we have certain courses, but certain courses that they can be embed into the copyright can be embedded in certain courses. But I believe that because of this issue, copyright is quite big. So maybe certain specific courses entitled copyright should be understanding copyright is something important for the university to offer to the communication.
And I think filmmakers all and also authors need to realize that I think copyright, all of us needs to know about copyright the first thing when we decide to do a creative content, I think. Because once you create something, you already have something to protect. and if you don't know about that, then I think we all will lose what we protect. And now, hopefully, we have all the assistance that we can get, and from the policymakers, from my IPO, from the tribunals, from our legal friends in Malaysia, and I hope we can gain something. So filmmakers out there, I hope that we all, if you need to know anything, just keep in touch with my IPO, contact your lawyer friends, and like T said, before you're signing anything, get all the best advice that you can get. And if everyone is doing the same thing, I think then we are going into the same direction, and you, the broadcasters, also have to consider this. But at the end of the day, we want everyone to benefit with the content, with the IP, with what we created, and everyone to get a piece of cake. So but respect the author of the work at the end of the day. Okay, so thank you guys for a nice session. Hopefully, my IPO can organize more sessions like this, so we all can learn something and get closer to you guys. I think the entertainment industry has been further apart from my IPO. Maybe takut ke apa, I don't know. But I think it's about time for all of us to go closer and kacau you guys more.
When COVID comes along, everybody stays home. Suddenly, I mean, I'm surprised that people don't understand the significance of what the content industry is all about.
Yeah.
Once you stay home, and then what? Even archives. We haven't even touched on archives yet. Anyway, it's been a pleasure, everybody.
You need all the content to watch, right? Okay,
content,
right.
Content not only entertainment, it's also education as well.
Yes.
So that is important.
Correct. That's why we don't use the word film second, because film is hiburan. So content is whatever that goes in. Yeah. Anyway, I mean,
All right, thank you guys. Thank you everyone. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, bye.